And then the next voice you'll hear afterward would be the Honorable Mayor Brad Kavanaugh as he facilitates our conversation. Mr. Kavanaugh has been a mayor since November 2021. Previously, he served on the Dubuque City Council representing the 4th Ward. Brad is a social worker with more than 20 years of experience working in a variety of practice settings with diverse populations. He spent the last decade at Loras College in Dubuque as an associate professor of social work. He holds a bachelor's degree in social work from the University of Iowa and a master's degree in social work from St. Louis University. Brad and his wife Jennifer have 2 sons. Joining the mayor today is his team, Director Anderson, I'm going to make sure I say it, Sansi, thank you. We want to make sure that we put emphasis on the last name once again. Director Anderson Sansi is with us. Brian Moose, who is the data analyst as well, and Timwa is with us as he continues to help us think about how we begin to connect with a local community. So Timwa Piri is with us as well. Help me to welcome his entire team. And the next voice you'll hear will be Mayor Kavanaugh.
Hello there. Thank you so much, Dwight, and to everyone for this invitation. I'll apologize right up front that you don't get a voice as solid as Dwight's for the rest of this as an MC, but we are absolutely honored and honored to be here. It's a real pleasure to join you. I was just commenting to Anderson here about the energy in this room all morning long. I hope you all feel it, but we're excited to be here and have these difficult discussions with each other, and I can tell that there's just a real hunger for you here to really move these initiatives forward and celebrate the things you're doing well, but then really take some really strong swings at some of these other challenges that are in front of us. We don't share real borders with you, and that's why we feel so, it's such a pleasure to be joining you today, and we really are glad to have this invitation. We're going to talk about something we call our Office of Shared Prosperity in the city of Dubuque, and as Dwight mentioned, I serve as the mayor there. I have served since November of 21 when I was elected, so I'm pretty new to the mayor gig, but I was on council for a couple years before that. Been pretty involved in the community in general. I was on the Housing Commission doing different things, but really this is very exciting work, and one of the biggest things that drew me into this role and wanting to serve in this way was knowing that I was in a community that took what you're about to hear seriously. And I want to share a couple of things with you. I'm going to kind of set the stage for what this is and how it became where it was, and then I'm just going to kick it over to Anderson. We're basically just going to have a conversation here as we go through this. I want to start by reading you a vision statement that was created by the Dubuque City Council over the years, and we keep updating this, but we basically keep it the same. And it's called the 2037 Dubuque Vision Statement, and I'm reading it for a reason, so let me just read this to you. Dubuque 2037 is a sustainable and resilient city, an inclusive and equitable community where all are welcome, and we capitalize all very specifically in that statement. Dubuque 2037 has preserved our masterpiece on the Mississippi, has a strong, diverse economy, and expanding connectivity. Our residents experience healthy living and active lifestyles, have choices of quality, affordable, livable neighborhoods, have an abundance of diverse, fun things to do, and are successfully and actively engaged in the community. That's what we are shooting for as a city. And we take that vision statement seriously. We as a council look at it every single year as we do our annual strategic planning, trying to figure out how we're going to move things forward. In the mid-2010s, community leaders recognized that something was happening with our poverty rate in the city of Dubuque, and it was alarming. We realized that our poverty rate was hanging around 16%. It was far higher than the rest of the state of Iowa and the national average at the time. And we decided to figure out what to do about it. The council at the time, which is the council before the council I serve on, there were multiple new people that were elected since this time, so this is 2 city councils that have gone through this. In 2018, they adopted they called for an equitable poverty prevention and reduction plan, very specifically calling out we want to prevent and reduce poverty in the city of Dubuque. Throughout 2019 and 2021, so right in the middle of the pandemic there, we hired a consultant, Public Works LLC, to complete this work and complete this study, put it together, deliver a plan that the city council could adopt and move forward with. In March of 2021, we had the opportunity to adopt that plan. But before I get too far into what we're doing now with it, I want to tell you a little bit about what we discovered. Some of these things weren't entirely surprising, but they were still very alarming. Our poverty in Dubuque was very concentrated in the downtown area. If you know Dubuque at all, we're kind of cut by this big bluff. So downtown, where the river is, and then the north end of that, there's 2 census tracts where almost all of the people who are in poverty and experiencing poverty in the city live. And we also found that this poverty was disproportionate by race, which I'm sure is not surprising because that's the way it is around the country, right? But it was wildly out of whack compared to the other numbers we were looking at. If you were white, your chance of being poor was 13% in the city of Dubuque. This was slightly higher than the national average, but not that high. If you're black, 54%. 54% of our black population in Dubuque was experiencing poverty at this time. Pacific Islander, if you know anything about Dubuque, we have a large group of Marshallese folks who live with us in the city of Dubuque. They've chosen Dubuque as their home. The people from the Marshall Islands have the ability to move around the continental United States pretty freely. They've chosen Dubuque. Around 800 or more Marshallese folks live in Dubuque with us. They're our friends and neighbors. 38% of that population. Asian, 17%. Latinx, 22%. If you're identified as some other race, 67%. These numbers are they were just so high that they alarmed everyone who was looking at them. So our consultants put together what's in front of you, a short executive summary, and this is where I'm going to kick it over to Anderson and his team to talk more about this. But in March of 21, we adopted this plan, and part of this plan, part of the vision of it, was to create an entirely new department in the city of Dubuque. We call it our Office of Shared Prosperity. So the Office of Shared Prosperity, 3 of the 4 folks who work in this office are sitting right here with you. They've taken it on, and we want to talk a little bit more about what this is, how we've done this, and hopefully give you a bit of a blueprint of what this could look like for you in your community as you look forward. So thanks again, and I'm going to kick it over to Anderson to start telling us a little bit more about what this office is and where we're going.
Thank you, Mayor Brad, and I too want to echo the energy in the room is just amazing. Many people have stopped by and we're watching how you're just connecting with one another, so we truly appreciate you just doing that. I do want to start off with what the Queen was saying a second ago about acknowledging women. And so I do want to take the time to acknowledge Marie Verdes and Enola Verdes, which is my mother and my grandmother, who traveled from Haiti to the U.S. for a better life. So thank you. Thank you. My mother is a single mother, and my grandmother, both from the poorest country in the world, systemically. We know the challenges with that, but was able to raise 3 young men and taught them the value of faith, family, and community in that order. And I was able to move to Iowa in 2006, so it was a huge culture shock from growing up in poverty, around drug dealers, crackheads, you just name all the above, to predominantly all-white community. But I'll never forget what my mother told me. Don't forget what I taught you. Now, when I said I was poor in college, imagine this, Florida moving to Iowa. My mother couldn't even come to watch me graduate. So imagine, for those of you who have kids or great-grandkids, not being able to watch your child, your loved one graduate, not because you didn't want to, but because you couldn't afford it. So poverty has been something that has been very instrumental to me because it shaped who I am today. Many of us may call it trauma, but for me it was life. Right or wrong, it was life. And I'm thankful that how we first got connected was through poverty. He was helping to lead conversation around poverty through a program called Circles Initiative. And right then I knew when he was running for mayor, like, he's the real deal. Because he was in the trenches while no one else was looking. So I appreciate the mayor and the council actually putting investment. And what you see in front of you is a one-pager of what we're striving to do. And that's to address, prevent, and reduce poverty from a systemic level first. Not adding programs, but from a systemic level. In those 8 determinants, we are trying to determine how various community members are experiencing life in those spaces. How do we do the work is very critical. We first start off with centering, and as you see intentionally here, the data. Many of us were talking about what needs to be done, but if you don't have the data, how do you know if you're moving the needle? Yeah. Both quantitative and qualitative. So we try to disaggregate the data, talk to people who have lived experience to understand what's going on. The second thing that we try to do is we try to facilitate and convene conversations with our friends, our partners. It's easy for us to get into the room like this to have conversations. It's hard to talk about the data. looking at the data to say, okay, what's not working and what do we need to do different? And as we're looking at the data, how do you make sure you're intentionally centering those who are most vulnerable to the conversation? So very intentional in trying to make sure we're constantly connecting with new people, not just the same old people doing the same old thing, getting the same results. That's not why we're in business. That's not why we were hired. We were hired to change the system. So in order to do that, sometimes you need new people at the table with shared power and with new ideas, because we all know those who are closest to the problem have the solutions. Just too often, we think we know better and we know what to do for them, right? The last thing that's very important in the work that we do is put your money where your mouth is. A wise person once said, don't tell me what you value, show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. Another way to look at it is, don't tell me what you value, show me your data and I'll tell you what you value. So my role specifically is to make sure, as you look at the first two, is always making sure I'm asking the tough questions around the data with Brian. Making sure that not only we're connecting with our existing partners to work together, but be intentional about reaching out to new partners. So going inside the banks, talking to the CEO, making sure we're talking to the housing department, making sure we're talking to the criminal justice system. And too often that's a hard thing to kind of qualify or quantify, right? But without relationships, it's so hard to change systems, right? So we have to make sure we're building relationships across race, across institutions to make sure we're improving things. And the most important thing that we try to do as well is align our efforts with what the mayor and council has said is a priority. Because we know, again, what's a priority for them, there's going to be money and resources behind it. And so the real work comes with these guys right here, starting again with Brian, who makes sure he's updating data, and he'll talk about some of his projects, but also Tim Perry, who's our community engagement coordinator, who's responsible for connecting with neighborhoods and residents and empowering them to be part of the solution. Because it's not just give people more money and poverty is going to change. We got to make sure we're empowering people as well to change the system, right? We have to make sure people know how to work the system to improve it for them, whatever that may mean. And for some of us who are in a position of power, it's okay to step aside and allow those who are most vulnerable to make the decisions moving forward, unless you have an ego. If you are truly committed to change, you're truly committed to the vision that we have, as we say, making Dubuque an equitable community of choice, it's okay to step aside and allow other people to help lead our community. Because when we do that, we can bring new people here, right? And the last thing that I'll mention before I send it over to Brian to talk about some of his data effort, just want to remind people, for those of you who are a number of people, the median income also at the same time as Mayor Brad was talking was around $60,000. For African Americans, it was zero. Just imagine that, zero. For Hispanics, it was around, I believe, 20,000. 24/7 Wall Street came out with the worst states for African American. I get to the point. Number 3 was Iowa. Number 4 was all of you. Right? All of you. So we're neighbors. We're not satisfied with that. We're not satisfied with that. And until we fix it, we're not happy. And so Brian, if you can talk about some of the work that you've been doing around gathering data, and also we've been talking about livable wage. I've heard a few people talk about that. Can you talk about what is a livable wage for the city of Dubuque?
First off, good morning everyone, happy to be here. A little about myself, my name is Brian Moose Monroy. I am a second generation American, first generation college graduate. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak to all of you. My mom just texted me wishing me good luck, so I'm hoping I do well. But yeah, a little bit about me. I joined the Office of Shared Prosperity Neighborhood Support about 6 months ago. I graduated in May of 2020. Got the chance to go back to Panama, reconnect with my family after not being able to go for a few years because of my collegiate studies. And then, got my first big boy job with the city. And so, kind of in a full circle moment, Brad was actually my social work professor. I was a triple major in criminal justice, political science, and social work. And so now it's kind of weird going from presenting to him to presenting with him. So it's kind of, I'm really taking this moment in right now. And so a little bit about what I do is I've been tasked with not only building the data infrastructure for the city of Dubuque, but looking at data specifically to how can we address, prevent, and reduce poverty. And one of my main projects is, establishing what a living wage is. So working with some colleagues from our development corporation in Dubuque and our community foundation, we've taken a methodology from United for Alice, which is a driver and an innovator for making life better for a lot of low-income people across the country. And so we reverse engineered their methodology to drive it down to a city level. And so what this means is typically the Alice report is by the county. And so now that we can drill down to the city level, we get more specific insights for our 40 or 56,000 residents rather than the 120 that live in the greater Dubuque area or in our metropolitan statistical area. And so I'll pull these figures out right now. The way that we look at poverty is severely outdated. And so when you're looking at the poverty thresholds for a single adult, it's roughly $14,000. So as soon as you're above that measurement, you're not getting counted as a person who's in poverty. And so our threshold is $25,299 for a single adult. And there's a huge gap there. And if you think about the way that we distribute programs, we distribute resources, those people who are right above that 100% poverty level are not eligible anymore. And when you break that down for single parents, it's $19,000 for a household of two. Our measurement says that it's $42,000. So now we're looking at $20,000, that difference, that people are falling between the cracks. And these aren't people who are sitting around, living the narrative of collecting unemployment checks. These are working poor people. They're working part-time jobs, supporting their family. And so I think even the most, striking number to me is that for a family of four, it is $30,000 to survive. That is the poverty threshold. Our measure says that for a family of four with one adult working, it's $63,000, more than double. For a family of four with two adults working, $78,000 when you incorporate the cost of childcare, which is not going down anytime soon. And so I think that our measurement is a great way to incorporate a more localized and comprehensive view of what poverty actually is. It's not people who aren't working. It's people who are working and struggling to survive. And I think that the budget that we've implemented, or this measure, is a good way of just supplementing that. And so our next steps for this, for this project is to incorporate our community equity profile that our local newspaper and our community foundation have put together and incorporate a qualitative thing to support our numbers. A lot of our numbers do come from federal sources, so HUD fair market rents. But I can tell you as a young adult who is on salary, it is hard to find a place to live. These $500 for an efficiency apartment doesn't cut it anymore in Dubuque when Facebook Market's telling me it's $850. And luckily, I am in a place of privilege that I don't have any dependents, I have a good salary, and that a lot of people can't really afford this. And when you're looking at rising costs for food, transportation, childcare, it's just abysmal. And so to go into the research a bit further, when we're looking at these figures compared to the median household income, we're looking at $63,000 for a family of four. 57% of Latino families don't even make that. And that number raises to 93% of black families in Dubuque don't make that threshold. And then for our Marshallese population, it's 95%. So there is a lot of work to be done. And I think that this living wage study is just the beginning, because if there is a way, a means, and if you have the answer, please let me know. I've been thinking about it. So how we can implement this to make it a benchmark for program creation, for eligibility, for housing, for child care subsidy. If there is a way, please let me know, please. But sincerely, there's a lot of potential for this, and with your collaboration and your support and helping me out, I would love to see a future in which we could see this to be the benchmark for program creation.
Well, one of the things I want to mention also before Mayor Brad grabs the mic is that with that information, we do work with our community college intentionally to try to make sure we're skilling people up now that we have that data. Because it's one thing to have it, what are you going to do now? And so we do have a program through our institution, so we're not creating anything new. We're just trying to work amongst our partners and say, hey, what can we do differently now that we have this data? And so we're working with our community college to skill people up and target communities that we know are not participating in efforts to get higher wage jobs. And also with some of these programs that are currently in place, we're asking the institutions, are these programs that are going to push people up or put them back into poverty? Because too often, we're not thinking about the programs we're creating and saying, is it really going to lift people up? You got to ask the tough questions. And so that's what we're intentionally doing, is saying, hey, any program that the city is investing in, it cannot be a program that's going to push people, intentionally push people back into poverty.
Yeah, and as usual, we're on the same wavelength with this, because one of the things that I want to point out, and what Brian's talking about before I kick it over to Temwa here, is, when Anderson talks about building the relationships that we need to build, we really see this, and this is kind of what's in the plan too. We see this as what you call a backbone organization. So we needed a hub in the city of Dubuque that was going to be able to coordinate the efforts of multiple partners. And that's really what the city was trying to take a role in doing here. So we created this office to be able to be a backbone organization that connects with all the different partners you've heard so far. We've got a community foundation, we've got Economic Development Corporation, we have our Chamber of Commerce, we have community college, we actually have multiple, I think 7 total colleges in the surrounding area in the city of Dubuque, in the area there. We want to make sure that and employers, we cannot forget about the employers and the opportunities for employment and things like that. So we need to build those relationships and bring everybody on board so we're all singing from the same song sheet first, and then be able to move some of this forward. Part of that is connecting with residents themselves in neighborhood organizations that had started to, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, kind of fall apart. The neighborhood organizations just weren't functioning in a way that was really strengthening the neighborhoods or the community at large. So part of what we did was we folded a program that was already sort of partially existing into this office, and that's where Temwa's role really has taken off. So Temwa, I'll let you describe a little bit about the neighborhood support aspect of this.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kavanaugh. Again, just want to thank everybody for being here, just for the opportunity for us to be present up here and sharing. Thank you, Reverend, for coming over and breaking bread with us, because that was a very refreshing trip and conversations that we had. But again, my name is Temwa Piri, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator. I was originally born in Zambia, and when I was 8 years old, moved to East Lansing, Michigan. That's where I grew up. And after that, got a random postcard that brought me over to Dubuque, Iowa, and just fell in love with the community, fell in love with the place, and worked with the school district for about 6 years, working with at-risk youth. So when I hear at-risk youth, I have a huge heart in that work. And so what drove me to working in this position with the city is just, again, relationships and building connections with people. And one of the great opportunities that we've been able to do is a program called City Life. And the City Life is designed for community members to be able to engage with their local government, because it's all about that relational education. Prior to working with the city, I wasn't aware of how everything kind of functioned and worked. But as I started to dive in a little bit more, building relationships, being more educated, I saw the power that had on being able to make the changes and the impact that I wanted to see. Too often, a lot of community members might sit back on their social media, Facebook, wanting to change, but having it as a status, right? So this is a vehicle and an opportunity to engage with our residents, so that way that they can get an opportunity to not only learn about how their city functions work and how it works, but how they can get involved, right? And they can get involved within our boards and commissions, so that way that they can make the change that they want to see and be the change that they want to see. They can get involved with our neighborhood associations and being able to bring about community, whatever that looks like for them. And one of the things that's really important and valuable for our department is also, back to what Anderson mentioned, is investing, right? Where's our money at? And so we really value being able to invest within our neighborhoods for them to be able to build the community that they're looking for. Because again, those that are closest to the problems or the situations usually have a solution, right? And so it's not about just having the financial capital, but also the social capital. So as they get to connect with other residents, they build their social capital. As they get to connect with other city departments, they get to see some names and faces and build those relationships. So when we've had this program for some time, and I've seen some residents where we've had them connect with the housing department, and they've had some pressing questions that they just never knew who to ask, right? And we saw some great solutions and great relationships created there that shifted the way that those individuals were now living and experiencing their city, right? And so I think that's a really important piece of the work that we do, is being able to connect others, not only as far as the residents, but also the departments themselves. Through this experience, we get to learn a lot about how can we improve the work that we're already doing, because we get that resident feedback, and we get other individuals to engage. Hi.
You have a team with you to help you out as the old guy. I think Tim was like discrediting himself a little bit. So from a practical standpoint, monthly he meets with existing neighborhood associations. So that's not a will I, he will. And that was something that the city manager made very clear. Don't forget about the neighborhood associations, because our title transitioned from the Office of Shared Prosperity and Neighborhood Support, and we didn't want the neighborhoods to feel like, well, are you forgetting about us? So monthly, he meets with them, connects with them over coffee or lunch, and asks them, well, what are you guys planning on doing to build community, right? Or what does community look like for you? What could our department do to help you? So that could be little things like, you know what? There's trash everywhere. Can someone clean it up? Well, let's work with the neighbors. What do you think? Do you know your neighbors? Can we get them out to clean? How about we do a barbecue? We'll give them money in order to do barbecue. Whatever community means to them, we give them the resources to do it and step aside. If you need support from our department to help facilitate, convene that, that's what we're designed to do. And typically, some of those neighborhoods were downtown. And now we're saying, hey, there should be a sense of community throughout the community. So as we're connecting with the existing, we're also moving throughout the community saying, hey, where else can we start neighborhood association? Who else wants to build community? Because everyone should have that sense. You come out, you know your neighbors. You trust your neighbors. And then we're trying to get neighborhood associations to connect across lines. So that way it's not just the blacks are over here, the Hispanics, the Marshallese, the Native Americans. No, we want people to build a sense of community. And another task that the mayor and the city council has asked us to do is infuse arts into the neighborhoods, right? What does arts look like? If it's music, entertainment, every neighborhood should have a sense of pride. So he does a lot of hands-on, active meetings with people, and I don't want to downplay that work itself.
And I think really quickly, just to highlight Temwa's efforts, our program applications for City Life have actually increased 591% since fall of 2021.
It's certainly a team effort. Definitely a team effort, and that one I can't take the full credit, because again, it's also partnering with our other departments, like our public information office and our other departments that are willing to participate in the program, because the program is not during work hours. This is after hours. So we meet 6 sessions. That's 3 weeks, every Tuesday and Thursday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. So the dedication that they're putting